Hi, good day. This is Cornelio O. Magsayo Jr. and I am from BIT Electrical 1G Night. So today we will tackle about verbal and non-verbal communication and their advantages and disadvantages. Verbal communication refers to the production of spoken language to send an intentional message to a listener. Verbal and nonverbal communication abilities are considered to represent a core deficit in the diagnosis of autism. So example of verbal communications are conversations, a speech or a presentation, and having a phone call with someone. Verbal communication includes sounds, words, language, and speech. Speaking is an effective way of communicating and helps in expressing our emotion in words. This form of communication is further classified into four types, which are intrapersonal communication, interpersonal communication, small group communication, public communication. So these are the advantages of verbal communication. First is time saver. With the method of verbal communication, tasks can be efficiently dealt with. Verbal communication saves time and helps us complete jobs within a few minutes. By avoiding other lengthy procedures, through verbal communication, you can convey your thoughts or instructions at your regulated speed and not wait on such tasks that are to be completed. Second, quick feedback. Feedbacks are necessary for any social scenarios where communication is involved. By utilizing verbal communication, you will be able to produce quick feedback to the host original message. Third, convenient. Verbal communication is the most widely accepted method of communication. Individuals worldwide prefer verbal communication over other variants of communication due to its convenience. Fourth one is ease preparation. Any individuals who know how to convey their thoughts into words need to prepare the least in the case of verbal communication. Next is privacy. Verbal communication ensures privacy to individuals to maintain the secrecy of certain events. Fourth one is ease preparation. Any individuals who know how to convey their thoughts into words need to prepare the least in the case of verbal communication. Next is improved clarity. Verbal communication occurs in either oral or written form, hence the speaker or writer and the listener or reader can clearly understand the subject or context of the message. Therefore, it improves clarity. These are the disadvantages of verbal communication. Distorted meaning. Sometimes the meaning of intended messages can change during verbal communication and drift far from the actual point. Next is inconvenient for long messages. Verbal communication is then inconvenient when conveying long paragraphs since it can miss important point and become very lengthy, causing misinterpretation or effective communication. Next is unnecessary information. When it comes to conveying your thoughts and opinions, ideas orally, it can include unnecessary or irrelevant information, leading to a gap in communication and delaying effectiveness. Next is misunderstanding. If the message through verbal communication is not conveyed well and with precision, it can create misunderstandings for a communication gap. So, nonverbal communication refers to non-linguistic behaviors, indicating emotion, mood, attitude, and social cues. It is a critical part of human interaction and can be seen as the most important form of communication. Moreover, nonverbal communication is a valuable tool for expressing oneself. It is hard to control what the body does, and we will not be able to articulate everything with words. That's why it is important to be aware of the different ways that people express themselves, such as using gestures, facial expression, and tone of voice. Advantages. provides clarity. Nonverbal communication has been around for centuries in its way of communicating that is not limited to just facial expression or body language. Nonverbal communication can substitute for verbal communication. Nonverbal communication can substitute for verbal communication. The nonverbal message conveys the same meaning as the verbal message. For example, if a person is visibly upset, then their face should show the emotion. Useful for literate people. A lot of people wonder why it's important to have nonverbal communication. If you can't read body language, well, for the literate people, verbal communication is not an option because they don't know how to read. The disadvantage, in price, in vague, it is true that nonverbal communication is poor in conveying specific information and often leaves people with feeling of uncertainty. Long conversations are not possible. Nonverbal communication is often used for communication, so verbal language can be saved for more important matters. Next, meaning varies across cultures. Verbal communication is a lot easier to understand and takes because it is explained with words. Might distort information. Nonverbal communication is very complex and relies heavily on visual cues.